Hi, welcome to Expert Talks at Maverick. This is the interview series with thought leaders in the AI, analytics, and transformation space. My name is Mahadevann Iyerr, Mahaa for short. I'm your host for today. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Maverick, which is a managed marketplace for on-demand analytics and business transformation services. Our guest for today is Shailesh Jain. Shailesh is the group head of data and analytics at the Landmark Group. He and his team support landmark businesses worldwide with their analytics and AI requirements. Prior to Landmark Group, Shailesh was the Senior Vice President and Head of Analytics at Citibank India. He's also held analytics leadership roles at KPMG Advisory and DunnHumby. Shailesh, thank you so much for making time and talking to us at Expert Talks.
Pleasure.
So Shailesh, let me start. You had varied experience. You've worked with DunnHumby, which for people who don't know, focus on the consumer analytics side of the Tesco Club Card program predominantly, right? And for a few other retailers as well. And then you worked on the KPMG advisory services. So would have supported many clients across industries. You worked with Citibank in the financial services domain, and now in Landmark Group, where you focus on analytics across the value chain, including the consumer side of it, right? So what I wanted to understand from you is how did you, go about building business domain knowledge and awareness in yourself and your team? Are there any, any approaches to this in terms of how one should go about in building this capability? Right. Number one.
There could be many approaches, and look, if we start writing down, there could be at least 20 areas that I can write down how to build domain capability across the entire team, which is supporting on various initiatives, data-led initiatives. But I'll pick up my personal top three that has worked for us really well. My number one would be a strong partnership with the business across levels. We are in the area of retail, so right down from the CEO level to head of marketing, head of merchandise planning, head of retail, finance, e-commerce, etc., etc. So have a very, very strong partnership and understand as to what's happening in their businesses, not just the kind of initiatives, the kind of data-driven solutions that you want to push in their business, but what are their needs, what are their strategies and visions and goals for the next 6 months to 12 months. And that's when you can really make an impact in terms of getting your efforts in the right direction. The other thing which has worked for us is exposure for data scientists, data engineers, analysts, analytical consultants, whoever, whichever bucket you want to put them in terms of their skill set for data analytics, giving them exposure at the shop floor level of the various processes, whether it's a retail store, how the POS system works in the retail store, how does the customer assist work in the retail store, or if it's a warehouse, how do the boxes or various inventory, how do they get stacked, how do they get pulled out when you need to replenish in the store or when you need to service an online order, how does the customer servicing works, how does buying and range planning work. So have a direct real life experience for them so that they understand it. And when they are building models, when they are creating analysis, they know exactly how it's going to be utilized. My third one, which has also worked for us very well, is role rotation. So in data labs at Landmark, we have multiple specialized area of analytics. We got pricing analytics, we got e-commerce analytics, inventory, supply chain, customer, etc., etc. And typically, any analyst which has 3 years plus tenure with us, they would have worked in at least 3 to 4 of these areas. And that's how they develop a fully rounded domain capability of not just retail, but also retail analytics and how data-driven decisions can be deployed in each of these areas.
Nice. So, let me actually go a level deeper now. You started with DunnHumby, which is, which is in some sense possibly the gold standard in terms of how consumer insight should be done. That is how it was looked at, right? High level of data maturity, Citibank, again, known for a very high level of data maturity, right? Um, in Landmark Group, you set up the data labs in the center of excellence. It was almost a greenfield venture for you, right? Starting there. So, in while building this whole Antis capability, are there certain nuances that you can talk to our listeners about from a industry, from a data maturity and work culture perspective? Are there any insights you can share with our listeners in terms of how does one flex and search to take care of this?
There are quite a few things, whether it's a greenfield project or a brownfield project, it doesn't really matter as much, but some of the areas that one could definitely look at and they will apply in pretty much all the situation is number one would be technology. And when I say technology, I will bucket many things under that one bucket of technology. Some of them you've already covered, such as data quality, understanding of the data in terms of not just what data exists and where it exists, but also what processes are generating that data and how are they generating that data. If there are any constraints about that data being generated or how it is being captured. So totally full understanding of that data quality and understanding is very, very important. The platforms on which it is being generated, not just the data analytics platform, but all the other platforms which communicate with each other, whether it's the online platform for the e-commerce or it's the retail systems or it is the merchandise planning system. Even though a data analytics team will be a consumer of the data that gets spit out of these platforms, but also at the same time how data flow across these platforms, how the various processes hand off data from one step to another step. That understanding is very, very important. And once again, within the technology bucket, the other thing that I will put, which is relevant for both greenfield and brownfield projects of increasing the maturity of data analytics function in any organization, is understanding of all the moving parts when it comes to the technology and platform. You're obviously not the lone traveler in the organization. There would be many other IT initiatives, finance initiatives, supply chain initiatives. Everything is moving in a forward direction. And how do you account for that within your initiatives without waiting for everybody else to finish before you start, or you develop something which might be irrelevant in 18 months' time? Keeping all of that in your stride, that is extremely important, and that's where the strategy for data analytics for any organization comes into play. That will be one, and that's one of the major ones. Second would definitely be the business side, and in business side, I would say the vision and the alignment and keeping data analytics delivering to business goals and business goals such as customer satisfaction, customer experience, revenue, and profits. That's extremely important because once you start delivering on these goals, pretty much almost immediately, business automatically starts aligning itself to become more data driven. Yeah, and hence instead of waiting for business to give complete support and throw in a lot of investments at data analytics and then having a waiting period of 12 months to 2 years or 3 years, whatever people spend, it is extremely important for any data analytics team to start delivering some goods to the business almost immediately. And once that happens, variety of areas, whether it's customer, e-commerce, supply chain, finance, inventory, or anything else, automatically will start aligning itself and becoming more data driven and dependent on it as well. Lastly, and the most important, without it, any business or any data analytics function will not survive, is people. So one needs to have a very good mix of data scientists, data engineers, as well as analytics consultants who will be the bridge between both business as well as the technology side of things.
Got it. Now, when you look at organizations as large as Landmark Group, or, any of the organizations where there's center of excellence that are there supporting the business, you have business requirements or analytics projects on a spectrum of what I call as quick turnaround, solve it for the business now type of projects, right? Which is essentially business is looking for those projects because of a market situation, competition, or just about trying to get past the KPIs for that particular month or quarter, whatever. Right? This is where the business is actually facing the fire, right? And then you have those ones which are really strategic, long-term, breakthrough type of assignments, which is typically where not only the business understanding but the ability of the analytics team to know what is really possible. The art of the possible is something they can define and lead that, right? Um, and so this is something, this is always a healthy tension in terms of how much you should invest here and how much you invest there. So any thoughts from your side in terms of how a good analytics team should balance between these two, and how does this also help create the business credibility for them and motivation for themselves?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, in terms of any critical success factors for any business to have a mature data analytics function or initiate and make the organization more data driven, is alignment with the business. And within alignment, you need to look at both the short term as well as long term. You need to start delivering the actionable analytics for the business pretty much straight up. And then also at the same time, as more confidence gets developed by the business, as business starts aligning itself to become more data driven, then you also start working on the long term initiatives, which includes self-service, which includes more AI driven solutions, etc., etc. But in my view, look, both kind of projects, which are quick turnaround as well as long term, both are equally important. You cannot choose between the two. And to be frank, there is no magic percentage allocation between the two. It totally depends upon the business, the market, the strategy, and the goals and the maturity of the organization where they are at in vis-a-vis the competition. Personally, what works for us is that in majority of the initiatives, we make short-term objectives, but we also have them contribute towards the long-term vision for a more matured AI solution. And that way, it's not an either or. It's everything. It's the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle for the long-term vision of what we want to achieve.
Got it. So what you're saying is even short-term projects that are taken, ideally, if they are in lockstep with the overall goal, then there is a level of immediate, business returns or business solutioning, a level of credibility that gets built, while the team is also pursuing the overall long-term objective of what it wants to achieve.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Now, so right now, obviously, people say data is the new oil, and a lot of data exhaust is there. Companies have started capturing a lot more of data, not just transactional, but also in terms of behavioral, in terms of e-commerce, digital exhaust, and they're constantly pursuing this, right? And one of the challenges I've always faced is you've got a lot of data about your customers, own customers, and trying to analyze them. But there is always business. You're able to build a lot more connect with business. You're able to give them also an outside in perspective, which many companies actually lack. They know what their customers are doing, but they have an inability to really put it in perspective with the share beyond the company, the wallet share of the customer beyond the company, or the market share of the customer beyond the company. So how important is outside in perspective becoming? And what could be some of the approaches that companies could take, and to give some practical use case or insights to business so that they can immediately connect with it.
So one thing, it's not becoming important, it has always been important. And in fact, companies have spent a lot of money, depending upon which area they are in. They've spent a lot of money in running various surveys, deploying a lot of agencies from outside to conduct customer surveys, focus groups, as well as incentivizing their own customers to provide them more information about as to how do they think about their brand vis-a-vis the competition brand. In fact, a lot of times, many organizations have figured out what they view themselves as somebody's competition in customers' mind. That is not the competition. They're thinking something else as a competition. So that's always been there. What's really changed recently is the techniques to acquire that knowledge has become far easier, even without deploying any agency and making it, let's say, an exercise several times a year or once a year. You can make it a continuous process, whether it's through social media analytics, whether it's getting some information in terms of where else is customer spending and what's the share of wallet that you're getting from the customer. And from the internal data itself, you know that two customers are extremely look-alike. However, how they behave is very different. One customer wants to spend 50 or 80, 90% of their wallet share with you, and they will show that in terms of the areas that they're spending into, the kind of products they're buying, and the repeat purchase behavior they're buying, their omni-channel behavior, as opposed to the other customers who are not showing that behavior. So from that perspective, you get both outside in as well as inside out view, and the way you combine it, that makes an actionable insight for the business. But this information all the businesses have sought uh, for many years.
No, I absolutely agree. I think maybe I didn't frame the question right. Businesses always had that expectation, but I think we in the data analytics side have had challenges about how to source it. And like you said, it was predominantly marketing doing focus groups or market research or some surveys, which is a point in time type of exercise. But what you're saying is with the level of data that is available today, there are other venues, possibly through Google and through social media, that one can actually source that particular data and try and understand what is the type of wallet share and share of the customer's business we are getting, and get both outside in and inside out perspective.
Absolutely.
I was listening to one of your talks on industrial 4R. I think you spoke at the Dubai AI World on this, right? And it was fairly clairvoyant because I think you spoke about it around 4 or 5 years back. If I'm not wrong, it was around 2019. One of your videos that I, as part of this preparation, is going through. Um, and so and most of what you spoke about, is also with generative AI coming in, is almost sounding as if this is what you meant, right? Um, so can you again throw some light on fourth industrial revolution as you spoke about it, uh, and how AI and generative AI specifically is likely to impact businesses, predominantly the retail industry, in the way how we approach our business, our customers, etc.
So the look, there have been several industrial revolutions that have happened, right from the time of whether machineries came into play, or computer systems or internet came into play, and the fourth industrial revolution is all around data analytics, machine learning, and AI. And AI, simply put, it just automates and bring in more confidence into the processes, which are repeatable in nature. Yeah, and decision making, basic level decision making, AI definitely helps you make the basic level decision making. Just to give you a simple example, if there is an invoice that need to be processed and then need to go through 3 steps of approval, then automatically it can cover all that, assist in that, and there is no human intervention required apart from the approval process. Sometimes if it is automatically those steps are captured during during the process itself, then it can complete the entire process itself and capture the data, and also raise red flags in case there are any. So anything which is of such nature, in my personal view, is a right subject for AI and generative AI, whether it's answering to customer queries, which are anything from basic to medium complexity, anything even to the extent where it requires sometimes you to give out and give some coupons to the customer, that also based on certain rule based. Because if you look at it, the jobs of some of these folks, they follow a certain policy and they follow a certain process, and if then else rules are applied in typically many situations. And this is a straight process which can easily be picked up, not even AI. In fact, this can be easily automated, a lot of these, And that's why businesses have automated those either in form of chatbots or in terms of automated emailers to the customer in response to their queries or their complaints, etc., etc. And businesses are using it is quite a lot. And this is not just for customer service, whether it comes to supply chain processes, whether it comes to even retail store or e-commerce, for any whether it's e-commerce in an omnichannel environment or a marketplace environment. For all of those, my personal view is those will be the first ones where lesser decision making have to be made, and where it is somewhat streamlined in terms of from the policy perspective, from the process perspective. Those will be the first one where business can easily deploy and have a level of confidence that it will be done exactly the way they want it to behave.
Got it.
Then the next layer, in terms of whether you want AI to draw experience from other sources, that is where everybody is still in a wait and watch mode. And if you look at generative AI as well, majority of the folks that at least we are aware of, they're using it in a private cloud environment as opposed to in a public cloud environment. And that's a fairly right approach to begin with. And I believe this will definitely help the speed to deliver to your customers, to respond to your customers much faster, as well as ease up a lot of the processes within the organizations too.
Got it. Got it. So what you're saying is whatever is business rules driven, using a combination of AI possibly for understanding unstructured data, and then things like RPA will come into play. And in terms of whatever is conversational nature, generative AI can play a role. But possibly it is early days still. People are wanting to be a little guarded and cautious about it. And once the hallucination rate probably drops, then they will say, okay, now let me open it out to customers type of stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
So just drawing on that now, so I understand, like, for example, when this conversation, when somebody is actually like a chatbot or responding to a particular customer client, where there is a finality to the answer that is to be given, then obviously people are still cautious, worried that a generative AI may sound intelligent, but should not give something which is not, true type of stuff. Having said that, there are areas in marketing, for example, when we want to do personalized messaging, personalized content, where the content is written, it is just the style of communication, the tone of communication, or the images being put together, right? Like the background and all that, which earlier the scale for us as a business or marketing team was limited because you had to create so many number of creatives, right? Um, is this something you see as an opportunity, something that you think retailers will experiment with in terms of, trying to use, let's say, the chat GPT models or the Dallies and the mid journeys to say, okay, I want to have some inputs of my, let's say, my range or product photo shoots or whatever, and then overlay it with, other models, background, etc., and try and do what I call as possibly ultra personalization. Do you see that happening?
That's been, in fact, Maha, that's been happening for a very long time now. In fact, I can't trace back the origin of it, but if I were to think about, I would say at least 15 to 20 years, that's already been happening.
Okay.
So right from the fabric, the swatches of the fabric, to designing the fabric, as opposed to sourcing the fabric itself and then stitch a sample as a designer, then send it to the buying team of any retailer and get an approval, etc. That process, which typically used to take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks time period from right from the fabric sourcing stage to making the garment and getting an approval, that's now been shrunk down to 3 days. Many retailers, including ourselves, are using it quite a lot. You have 3D design, high quality images of these swatches, and then from there you can immediately deploy many softwares. I won't name them here on the top, but you can there are many softwares that are available and different types of bodies that are available. Shadows are available. You can see the silhouette, you can see the fall depending upon the fabric, which the whether it's how many GSM are there in the fabric, what's the fall of the fabric, all that is captured as part of the high quality photo shoot, 3D photo shoot of the fabric itself. And then all that information as a UDA is passed on to the software, and you can design it very, very quickly, send it over directly. The model swirls, turn around like a ramp walk, and you can get that done. So this is not something new. In fact, it's been there for ages.
No, it has been there. I understand that, we've used computer vision, visual analytics before for doing product metadata management, capturing it, also used for building ranges and, not just building at a product level, but product attribute level and creating it. And some of it is also used for communication, right? But then it has been limited to certain retailers who are willing to invest the type of monies and all that do that. Now, my point was, with all this that is happening, is it going to get a lot more democratized and be a, even retailers of various sizes and would be able to access this? Do you see that happening? That was my question.
Yeah, that's definitely there. One is the technology, as we all know, it's becoming cheaper and cheaper with every year, and hence the access to many more retailers as well as manufacturers and designers. Even the smaller ones, they will have access to this technology more and more. And secondly, look, the speed has always been on the minds of any retailer as well as manufacturer. If you can cut down your time from the that you approve the order to actually getting it manufactured, or even the time to design, the number of designs you can churn out with these kind of technologies is obviously far more than if you have to stitch every single piece of the garment and the sample. That way, the manufacturers and the designers themselves will be forced to utilize this. Secondly, at the same time, from the buyers any retail organization perspective, they will prefer to get this more digitally, have all the information and make the decision faster there on a computer itself, as opposed to receive the physical samples and then reviewing each of them. So it's helpful for both retailers as well as the manufacturers, and it cut down the entire cycle by at least 3 to 4 weeks, like I said earlier. And that is the right step. That's the step in the right direction for the retail industry.
Got it. So again, going back to the presentation that you made, where you said as data becomes more important and it can help enrich businesses and life in society, you also said with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so now people talk of responsible AI, which essentially is about ethical, AI, explainable AI, etc. Right? There are also now a lot more of regulations coming in from GDPR perspective and data regulations and all that, right? So your own thoughts in terms of, now this is one part of it. The other part, so obviously companies can have guardrails in terms of how you source data. Third-party data sourcing is going to be increasingly difficult because Google is actually coming down on cookies, right? Cross app monitoring in iOS has been stopped, in Android is getting stopped, or already stopped, right? So there is first party data for any business is becoming increasingly important in terms of how they capture and make use of it. That is one side of it, right? The other side of it is, as people are moving from possibly business analytics into machine learning into deep learning, the level of accuracy of predictions is improving, but the explainability of obviously something like a decision tree is far higher, albeit less in terms of accuracy compared to using a deep learning model, right? Where the explainability could be less, but the accuracy could be high, right? Again, any thoughts on how business should think about it? Any certain thoughts they must keep in mind when they approach this?
So the very first thing is the term explainable AI might have just been coined in the last 5 years, but to be frank, it has been there since ages. It's been there since the beginning of the statistical modeling in businesses. If you look at banks and insurance companies, which started using data analytics as one of the early starters, there's always been an ask to explain why does a model score a loan application in a certain way. In fact, not just since the GDPR regulations came in many countries, the law required the banks to provide reasons if a customer demands why their application got rejected. Yeah, so hence just because you have a model to score the loan application or credit card application and you can take a decision, which is, but at the same time, you need to explain to the customer as well. On the point of the accuracy, I will have a slight disagreement there.
Okay.
In my view, explainable AI makes it easier for data scientists to not just improve the interpretability of the models, variables, and their weights, but it also helps with the accuracy of the model. Because especially in our area, rarely we will see a model which works in isolation. There is always a handoff of one model to another model, and hence, if you can explain the model and its weights and its variables and why it performs in a certain way much better, then it becomes more accurate. If you look at it, the entire spectrum. In fact, I would like to quote earlier this year in 2023 itself, Stanford University, they conducted a study on this very topic, and they concluded that deep learning models with explainable AI, they outperform the ones without it.
Okay.
In terms of the accuracy. So we know that it's about how you use it, and it's very important to understand the variables and its weights and why they're performing in a certain way and how it is going to be deployed and utilized by the business, as opposed to just going after only one number, which is the accuracy of the forecast.
Got it. So what you're saying is you can have your cake and eat it too. I mean,
Yes.
it is like the olden days where you said if you want high quality, then your costs will go up. And then in came Six Sigma and Lean and all those process engineering things, which actually ensure that with high quality, actually your profits go up, essentially, right? From control, it became assurance and improvement. So that's, I mean, I'm trying to draw a parallel here. We're saying that
Yes.
the more explainable it becomes, it is not really going to make the model inefficient. It is actually going to make it more accurate and more efficient. That's what you're saying.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. So any discussion in the current date on analytics and AI in the age of ChatGPT is incomplete without talking about it, right? Um, Now, obviously, LLMs have existed for some time, transformer networks have existed for them some time, but they have been predominantly the domain of AI professionals or AI researchers and universities and so on, right? Or maybe, AI specialists, so to speak, right? ChatGPT has actually brought it front and center into the world in terms of everybody's talking about it, right? And 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 so for a lot of people who, for them, coding is something they're worried about, what models to apply, as in they know what models to apply possibly, or have a practical sense of how to solve a business problem. They're always struggling because how do I actually get things done? How do I write a code? How do I analyze data? Um, so with ChatGPT coming in, everybody is now talking of saying that, if you have great prompt engineering skills, which is essentially saying that you know what is the objective you're trying to solve. If you have a reasonable understanding of the hypothesis and constraints that you need to possibly talk to in a very easy to understand manner with the ChatGPT, then you could solve for it, right? And so there is obviously this whole stream of prompt engineering, which is actually gathering pace. And a lot of people are trying to see if they can learn that without having a lot of possibly analytics coding experience to try and solve this thing. Do you see ChatGPT and possibly Google Bard coming in, so many others are coming in, and the level of democratization of using AI and intelligence that it is handing over to folks on the business side of it? Do you see this possibly realigning the way the current, data analytics ecosystem is today set up, where you have data engineers and data analysts and business analysts and data scientists and so on type, and ML engineers, ML ops and all that? I know they'll have a role to play, but how much do you see, which part of it do you think will get disrupted with this?
So let me, I will answer it slightly differently, as opposed to making this a strategic call by data analytics or by technology. This is more of a business vision and business strategy and long-term objectives. What do customers want from the business? They want high quality product, they want high quality service, and they want them to be available at the right time, at the right place when they want it, and at the best prices possible. Okay. If a business is still deploying the manual processes or they're not really reinventing themselves in terms of deploying some of these generative AI capabilities, which already exist. Either they develop it on their own or they deploy what has already been developed by any of the big players and tweak it as per their need. That doesn't really matter. But if they don't really innovate and deploy that in their business processes, whether it's front end or back end processes, that doesn't really matter. Their costs are going to stay up in comparison to the competitors who will deploy such processes. Secondly, their speed to answer might also get hampered, especially on very, very basic questions. Yeah. For example, if we talk about a very simple question that anybody who's ordering online is how long my order is going to take. I can't track my order. Where is my order, so to speak, etc. This is a very simple query. It should not, in majority of the circumstances, should not even require a human intervention. Just from the order number, you won't even have to take an order number. The customer is already talking to you from an application which you already know. It's on the on a specific device from where the order was placed, or the customer mobile number if you're on one of the chat platform. Automatically, without even customer having to go through certain steps, you can within seconds, you can provide that information back to the customer. And that's what is a good quality, high quality, at speed, when they want it in the middle of the night, if they want the answer, that is available to them, as opposed to saying our operating hours are from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. You have a 24/7 customer service. So that's number one. The second part of the question is in what are the specific areas where there would be. I would once again refer to what I said earlier. It's still wait and watch, because for any organization, especially large ones, the reputation is definitely at stake. Anything that you're responding by utilizing any of these tools is a written commitment to the customer or a written response to the customer, which can be utilized by the customer or anybody else, or even the law, in any which way. And hence, you need to be extremely careful as to where you deploy, in what sort of instances that you deploy this, and where you still leave that for human judgment. But increasingly, we will see that as we will start deploying some of these, other areas will also become slightly more democratized, slightly more process oriented, and will also come within the ambit of the generative AI.
Got it. Now, again, obviously there's this whole future of AI, generative AI, and then, artificial general intelligence, and, people are talking of all this, which essentially is going to have more and more power at the hands of the end user or the business user, so to speak, right? That's the general direction. Obviously, like you said, we'll go with a cautious approach, but at some point in time, the more mature organizations will start migrating by creating the types of policies, backend data systems, validation checks, and all that type of stuff, right? And the other side, there's this whole future of work, which is getting more and more fragmented. People are working from anywhere, anytime, type of stuff, right? So where do you see the future of AI impacting future of work, or future of work influencing future of AI, purely from in the realms of, let's say, anything to do with the data sciences and the digital transformation space? What are your thoughts on that?
Look, the times have been changing with each industrial revolution. The times have been changing. Back in the days, if you had to make, let's say, an international call, you will call the telephone exchange and they will connect your number. You don't do that anymore. You can do that from your mobile phone. You won't even need an international connection on your phone. You can use any of the VoIP services to do that. Yeah. Similarly, any generation that is joining work today, anybody who is upwards of 19 years plus, they got computers, they got mobile phones, they got internet when they were growing up. So they will assume these technologies to be present with them. Hence, you can't expect them to start working in the areas which used to exist pre-internet era or pre-computer era. Okay, so they will not find those kind of jobs interesting anyway. And hence, this is predominantly AI, generative AI, and technology is making those roles redundant, which the generation of today, whether it's you're talking about Gen Z or Alpha, they wouldn't want to do anyway. And since they're so well versed with computer, say so well versed with internet and internet technologies and the usage of internet across multiple platforms, as well as finally, if you see the generation, the later millennials and the Gen Zs, they're very good with coding. Python used to be a desirable trait roughly about 15 years ago. Now everybody knows Python. The kid who's in seventh grade, sixth grade, they're doing Python coding like there was no tomorrow. So these are automatically assumed to be the skills available in the future generation, and hence that's where the future of the work is also headed. And AI, in my view, is pretty much eliminating all the obsolete roles which the new generation of today, wouldn't want to do anyway when they come to the workforce.
That's very interesting. So what you're saying is, maybe this question is more placed from someone like me from the current generation or the older generation, but you're saying for the new generation, it's not even going to be an issue, because it's like saying that if you wanted to be in the services industry, you should have decent English speaking skills. You're saying, so in the current generation, anyway, they come with their Python coding skills and their ability to, solve problems. Now, so one of the things is, as data becomes more universal, as people start engaging, like you said, people have computers, internet, phones. I don't know what all will they have in future as well. People are into gaming, so there's a lot more of interaction that is happening with the machines, right? Compared to what our generation was possibly for, a lot more of human interaction. Right? Um, as this world evolves, where do you see the soft skill part of it, how important it is for somebody to be successful as a data scientist or a transformation specialist or a transformation engineer, anybody who's leading change, right? Or being part of a change. How much is so? What I hear from you is the hard skills are almost inbuilt now. Python skills आता है, data skills आता है, the ability to think data, think digital is inbuilt, right? So what I call as the hard skills. But then the soft skills part of it, given that they're going to predominantly interact with machines or mobiles or phones, how important does it become?
This is a very interesting question, and it is people still trust people um, for more complex decisions, for more uh, for the decisions and the areas with the higher stakes. For simpler processes, they trust machines more, and because not just because they trust the machine, but because machine gives them, there is a consistency of the answers and there is a speed to the answer as well. Yeah, that for that very reason. But people, I would like to believe people still trust people. Yeah, as opposed to what machine will, and hence the soft skill, at least for the foreseeable future, which I wouldn't put a number to it, but for foreseeable future, it will still require good soft skills in terms of human interaction, in terms of getting businesses to invest more in the areas of that will lead to higher customer experience and satisfaction, as well as for deals to happen, for transactions to happen, etc., etc. Retail itself, it's an experience. You can bring in a lot of technology in the retail store, but at the same time, how much can you replicate the human experience of somebody who's a shopper coming into a retail store? Obviously, as a customer, if you go into a retail store and it has a lot of technology platforms to enrich your experience, as a customer, you feel good about that retailer. You feel like going to that store over and over again. 100% of our shopping still not in the foreseeable future is happening on the internet. We still want to go out. We still want to eat out. We still want to, even though everybody has access to various platforms to watch various movies and anything that you want to watch is on your fingertips. But people still like to go out to the theaters for the experience of it. So that's not changing, and hence the human interaction and the soft skills are still to remain. I think the second part of your question was as to around uh, how these soft skills can help data scientists, I believe. I guess data scientist, one most important thing which has always remained, and it's not new, is about the understanding of the domain knowledge. Yeah, and most importantly, not just the domain knowledge as to what happens on the shop floor, what happens in the e-commerce world, what happens in the warehouse or in supply chain, etc., etc. But most importantly, whatever model that they're making or building, how are they going to be used? If they don't have a good understanding of that, then they we most data scientists will in that case will continue to work in an isolation. Secondly, it's an offshoot of the question that you asked earlier, which is around explainable AI. Data scientists need to understand the data science part of it and why a model is behaving in a certain way. Even if you get a high level of forecast accuracy, it's extremely important to understand why did you get it. It is not just about to explain the model to somebody else, but it will also protect against uncertain behavior of the model in the future. That predominantly, I guess, from the soft skills perspective, I will say will be helpful to a data scientist.
Got it. Got it. So essentially, if I call it as buy and sell, what you're saying is for someone to buy something, trust is required. Today, still people trust people. So human in the loop is going to be necessary till it gets to a stage where machines can exhibit that level of or command that type of trust. So, for anybody to buy something, if you're telling me something for me to buy, you're still a human in the loop becomes important, right? And equally, you're saying for a data scientist to be successful, eventually the success is measured by the change they can create, and it's a process of actually selling to human beings to accept that particular change and get it implemented. So you're saying, so the soft skill part of it is absolutely important in creating the trust for your insights to be used, and leveraging that bonhomie or camaraderie or connect, whatever, to be able to convince someone to roll out the change that you're suggesting or solving for.
Pretty much, yes.
So that brings me to the last question. So you have led analytics for almost 20 years now. Um, so in the current context, if you had to advise a budding or an aspiring, uh, person who wants to get into the data science stream today, what would be your top two, three advice for him or her?
My number one, which links back to your number one question that you asked me in terms of how important is the domain knowledge. Build the domain knowledge and not just the knowledge about various platforms, various libraries, and in which business problem that you're trying to solve, what models are deployed, but also understanding as to how things, how processes flow. Because even if you have a knowledge about a standardized process, but how does it work in your specific organization, you need to have a solid understanding of that. And also at the same time, working in partnership with the business is extremely important. Which once again, I'm linking back to your other question that you asked, short term versus long term. Just taking your own view, going into lab and coming back after 1 month may not solve the problem. Sometimes it may require a significant amount of urgency to solve the problem. I'll give you a classic example. 3 years ago, a lot of the things, a lot of the long-term initiatives businesses were working on, some of them might have been stalled or might have been postponed or completely eliminated because new urgent solutions had to be developed because everybody was in a lockdown phase. Okay. If people are not even going to the store because the stores are not even open, there is no point developing those. There is an urgent need to service the customer in a specific way. When the stores started to open, then businesses were required to, retailers were required to keep only a certain level of occupancy in the store. This was required by the law. How do you ensure that? How do you the processes around getting customers to booking the times or etc. All of these things start to happen. Restaurants, even till today, whatever started, a lot of the restaurants that you see, you will not find a physical menu anymore. It's all about scanning the barcode, yeah, which pretty much started. Many restaurants used to have that even earlier, but pretty much everybody started that practice at that time. So it's about the urgency as well. And then finally, the last point that I made, not just chasing the highest accuracy number, the model that is giving you the highest accuracy number today may not give you the highest accuracy tomorrow. It's very, very important to understand the variables and how variables are explaining the problem at hand, the objective function that you're going for, and why the model is behaving in a certain way. And this will insulate you against any sort of uncertainty if the model is going to behave in a certain way in future.
Got it. So essentially, understanding of domain and building domain and business knowledge becomes extremely important. Business partnering and collaborating skills is something that you are talking about. And thirdly, you're saying that once you build a model, it has to run possibly in perpetuity. So, having a ear to the ground and being able to sense what's changing in the market or the objective situation is something a good data scientist should focus on.
Yeah, it's not just the model has to work in perpetuity, but models obviously will keep on changing. You will swap a new model for better accuracy or better performance than the current one that you have. But even with the one that you're swapping it with, that model you need to understand why this model is giving you the higher level of accuracy or behaving in a specific way. Even if you're changing models every 3 months or every 6 months, you're recalibrating the models. You need to understand why it is, not just deploying any model from a library. That practice is very, very dangerous.
Got it. So the explainability of the model and how it is impacting the end objective that needs to be continuously monitored, and every new model that you want to actually change with, you have to keep monitoring that. Okay, got it. Great. Shailesh, thank you so much for your time. Pleasure speaking to you. As always, a learning experience interacting with you. Thanks again for making time and talking to us at Expert Talks.
It's a pleasure to connect with you, Maha.